Hello and welcome to another live instalment of the Empire of the Kop Podcast. You're just going to have to content yourself with the two of us here today. We have our very own Peter Kenny Jones and I will be your host, Farrell Keeling. And what a hell of a game we have in store of us on Sunday. It's a visit, of course, to the league leaders. Arsenal, not Manchester City, which, even 8 games into the season, I don't think many of us could have foreseen that happening. But, certainly the quality of football they're playing, they've earned their place there. We'll get up to that shortly. But first, we have to announce, of course, that Liverpool, the city of Liverpool, will be hosting Eurovision. I think when Klopp was asked about it, Pete, he was sort of like, I'm not really too sure. I mean, obviously, England isn't his native home, so I'm sure if someone asked one of us about a German festival or something, you know what I mean, we'd be like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure, I mean, I don't know, maybe he'll get into it now, maybe he'll have tickets ready to go and he'll dive into the spirit of Eurovision. Who knows? How are you feeling about it? Because obviously you're living in the city, so it's quite a momentous occasion.
Yeah, but it's all right, isn't it? As my missus ran in to tell me, so I feel like there's a lot of people who are going to be happy to see it happen. As you say, it's good for the city. It's all stuff like that. Obviously, we'll get a lot of tourism from it, and it should, even if you don't go, if you just go in the city, it should be like an interesting vibe. I think they do a couple of days, don't they? And they do like the semi-finals and everything. So it should be an interesting time to go and have a pint in town and see what people you bump into. There's always some mad heavy metal bands and all the gimmicky acts. You never know. Jedward might make a comeback. What a time to be around. And hopefully the Reds are doing better by then too.
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully. I mean, we've certainly started a lot better. 2-0 win against Rangers at Anfield and a thoroughly improved performance. I mean, we've all seen it, in terms of the eye test. It was very clear that we were playing a completely different system. I mean, the key thing about this is a 2-man midfield, which, given, the issues that we've been having in the midfield department, I think you'd have surely thought that at least a few heads would have kind of gone, well, we've dropped a midfielder then. We've dropped the best holding midfielder in the world when we're struggling in that particular department. But the performance certainly didn't reflect any issues in the middle of the park. In fact, if anything, we looked the most assured that we have arguably all season. There was defensive stability. We were creating chances. We controlled the middle of the park and pretty much pinned Rangers to their own third for much of the proceedings. I don't think that's over generous to say, is it?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that I don't think Rangers were necessarily the best opposition we've had at Anfield this season, or definitely in the past few years. But it was refreshing to see something different, and that's not me having to go Klopp at all. It's just we have had a pretty much rigid 4-3-3 for most of the time he's been here, so it was just nice to see something different and see how he's shaped up for it. I think it was the Palace game when Nunez got sent off. Klopp made the sub to keep the 3 up front, and we had, I'm pretty sure it was Fabinho and Hendo for a bit, or whoever it was defo 2 in the middle. And I think we looked fine then, and I think games against Rangers, no disrespect, Palace, Bournemouth, some people that we've had at Anfield, I think that we can afford to have 2 in the middle because we expect to have most of the ball, most of the games that we play. So I'm sure we'll touch on it. It'll be interesting to see whether the Arsenal and City games reflect that same formation. But it's going to be something that we can definitely use now. We know we've seen it in the game, and as I just said, then there's so many times where we have a lot of the ball. We're trying to break teams down, and having an extra man up front definitely won't hurt us. I think with Nunez, he looked like to really suit it because you saw that heat map of where he was in that game. He was everywhere across the front, left wing, right wing, through the middle. And to have him be able to do that and not leave yourself short in the middle, where Jota was always there, and you've always got the 2 wingers cutting inside. I think it did add something that was quite interesting, and I think probably for me, would work really well in that as well. Obviously, he didn't start; he'd be perfect for dropping into that number 10 and going to help the midfield if it did need it in the middle of the game. And it's always easy to change out of it. It's just one midfielder you bring on, and you just take one of the 4 forward players you've got on, and most of the forward players can play anywhere in the front 3 now. And it's an easy sub, as you say, you bring Hendo, Thiago, Fabinho on, and it seems like I think it'd be a good option for the future. I know a lot of people said 5 at the back as well could be something we use, and we might see that later on. But yeah, as you touched on, it seemed interesting that we've had hardly any midfielders, and now we made that decision to get rid of a midfielder from the team, and it did seem to work quite well. I don't know whether Would you agree, or what you thought on it?
No, absolutely, I completely agree. I think we looked, I think as we were saying at the start, the podcast, I thought we looked the strongest we have all season. I think, obviously, the thing that's been quite commonplace on Twitter is, it's only Rangers. It's, don't get too cocky about sort of the season, because you've got to bear in mind, we beat Ajax 2-0, then the international break followed, and then didn't do so well. But I think it's disrespectful to a certain extent of Rangers. I think, I have to absolutely emphasise, we're by no means saying that Rangers are of a similar calibre to a team like Ajax or of Napoli, but I think it's ultimately disrespectful to just go with only Rangers. You're in the Champions League group stages. You're in the top European competition that you can possibly be in. Anyone is a threat, regardless.
Yeah.
We've seen that with some of the results in the Champions League last year, with some of the shock like giant killings. Anyone can beat you. Obviously this was a quality Liverpool performance, and I think we shouldn't take that away from it.
Just to touch on those before you go off, if you go off Rangers, just to say, they had a team that beat Dortmund last year and got to the Europa League final. I know that's obviously what you were saying then, and I've just said they were in a great opposition, but as you say, I think people have underplayed how well we did do in that match.
Context is important, I think, in this case. I think, if Rangers had beaten Liverpool, they were going, oh my God, what a fantastic team, and Liverpool were terrible and all this. But, it's all too often Liverpool play well, and the excuse is, well, but they were poor, they were this, that. Yeah, but they were poor because we made them poor. You've criticised a Liverpool team all season for lacking defensive stability, for lacking any kind of control in the middle of the park. This was the first, I suppose, real performance, I'd say, where we ticked all those boxes that we haven't ticked all at once for much of, if not all, the season. You mentioned about Diogo Jota, because I think that there was at least a couple of players in that game that quietly had a really good game, but didn't necessarily get all the 8s and 9s on the scorecards at the end of the match. But Jota, in terms of effectively playing a false nine, dropping off into the midfield to help link up play. Jordan Henderson absolutely scintillating. The passing, there was one sort of lofted ball he played to Darwin Nunez. I think Nunez was on the left side of the box, completely skips over the midfield, and realistically should have scored from that position. But it highlights a number of things. One, Jordan Henderson is obviously a very, very good midfielder, and when you put him in the right system, he thrives. I think it's amazing how quick we are to forget that. The minute the team isn't performing, we go Henderson, and I've been guilty of it myself, but we go, Henderson's 32 years old. We need to be looking at, moving him on, bringing in some fresh blood. I think there's a grain of truth in that. We do need to be looking, that's ultimately why Jude Bellingham is considered to be the top target of Liverpool Football Club. Next summer, we're bringing in an injection of immediate quality and youth. But he's still fundamentally he's not just a man on the pitch shouting at his teammates. He's a quality footballer. It's obviously all within the context of, we'd argue Thiago Alcantara is, of course, a more technically brilliant midfielder, but you don't get into the Liverpool team and be the captain of the Liverpool Football Club if you're not already a good footballer. So there's that to consider. Nunez specifically, I think, is worth talking about because he didn't get on the score sheet. But I think the general perspective, if you talk to Klopp, if you talk to his teammates, is that he had a very, very good game. There's footage of him after the match sort of intensely staring at Thiago Alcantara while their heads are locked and, they seem to be sort of revving each other almost up for the rest of the season. I just want to get your perspective on Nunez, because I think we talk a lot about his movement, and there's plenty of arguments between Liverpool fans where you can have all the movement you want in the world. If he's not scoring goals and he's your £64 million potentially record-breaking striker, then what's the point of him? But I'm personally of the opinion of, if he's doing the fundamentals in terms of making those runs into the box, forming a relationship with the likes of Salah and his fellow forwards on the pitch, that, for me, is the hardest part of it. And once the goals start coming, I don't think they're going to stop.
Yeah, well, obviously, from watching him, I think just seeing him there, he just doesn't stop running. And, there's a lot of times you watch all the classic pundits, there's two different things he say. He's getting desperate for goals, he's moving himself out the 6-yard box, and he's just standing in the middle of the pitch, put the ball in the back of the net. But at the same time, they're saying that if the chances aren't coming, that's when you start worrying. And so it's hard to know which one of those two easy lines you can use to describe him. But he just looks like a player that needs 1, 2, 3 goals under his belt, and then you feel like they're just going to start coming. He came to Anfield last year with Benfica. He's playing with the worst team. There's no doubt about that when he was with the Portuguese side. And he came there and he caused havoc to our defence. And he obviously scored the goal as well in the Kop end. I think you watched him then and it showed that he obviously had the bags of confidence at that time. Now he doesn't have it because he hasn't scored the number of goals he probably would have wanted to at this stage of his Anfield career. But he's definitely a handful for defenders, and there's no way that Ben Davies and the rest of that Rangers backline would have said, "Oh, we'll happily play against him all the time," because he was going left, going right, going through the middle. Won the free kick that Trent scored from. There's quite a few compilations afterwards. It seemed like it was him versus Alan McGregor at points where he just couldn't get the ball past him. And Alan McGregor's a good goalkeeper. All you need is one dodgy keeper that goes through you. I think we saw in pre-season when he played against Leipzig when he got the 4 goals. We saw then maybe the keeping wasn't great, but that confidence was massive for him and probably helped him into the Community Shield. You just need one of them. You need to, in a proper game, we can say in a league game, Champions League game, he just needs that little bit of luck, get a few goals in, and I think he'll start flying. You can even compare it to what Peter Crouch was like years ago, how long it took him to get his first goal. But when he did, he settled right in and he was a real threat. And Nunez hopefully can do the same. I think the one thing that he's going to struggle with is that he's going to be constantly compared to Haaland. And we can't deny that Haaland is doing absolutely miles better than him, but Haaland's breaking every record in the book at the moment. He's on track for like 70-odd league goals, and he gets a hat-trick every other game. So you can't really judge him against that. You've just got to judge him against a new player coming to the country. There's so many lines you can use that everyone always does. He didn't pick the price tag. He just came to a really good club, and he's so eager to impress. It's good to watch, but at the same time, you do think if he just gets those few goals, calms himself down, I think he'll be a terrific player, and we can expect him to score bags and bags of goals. And we've signed him on a 6-year deal, not a 6-month deal, so he's got plenty of time to bed himself in.
Absolute freak of a footballer, Erling Haaland. I think we all knew, even after the Community Shield, and everyone was sort of making comments and sort of saying, he spent this and all this, but I think we all sort of secretly knew he'll be fine. He'll start bagging in the goals. And I think you're absolutely right. I think those comparisons are just harmful at the minute because you are just seeing Erling Haaland just score hat-tricks left, right and centre. And as you say, he'll be breaking records this season. He'll continue to do that for the rest of his career, I should imagine, whether he stays at Manchester City for the next 10 years or ends up making a move to Real Madrid or another European heavyweight. That's just the reality. Yeah. But I mean, if we can move past those comparisons, I'm sure he has already. It's just a matter of finding the back of the net. He's getting into those positions. I think it's a point that Klopp made in his press conference. There's nothing to worry about because he's doing everything I want him to be doing. He's making the runs I want him to make. He's in fantastic positions up in the forward line. He's doing everything that has to be asked of him. The critical part, which is getting the ball in the back of the net. And obviously, like you say, we've seen a longer goal drought with Peter Crouch, and hopefully, I think he goes on to have a better career than Peter Crouch. But we'll see. No, absolutely no disrespect meant to him.
Well, and it was his third start as well, wasn't it? As well, which I think is important to note. Obviously, he gave himself a stuttered start by headbutting Anderson from Palace, but it was only his third start in a Liverpool shirt. And as you say, he's had those periods out, international breaks, and Klopp's not played him for a few games, so he hasn't had even 3 starts in a row yet. Never mind, that was only his third start in a Liverpool shirt. So, as you say, I think if you ask a proper Liverpool fan, we're all more than happy to wait and just wait for it to click, and it looks like it will. It's just a matter of when.
Absolutely. I mean, I suppose the question is going into Arsenal, because I think if we do compare it to Rangers, we can acknowledge fairly that it's a bigger test. Beg your pardon, in the context of the quality that's available on the pitch. I think we will obviously go into this later with our chat with Tom Helovich. But there's a hell of a lot of quality as far as the midfield and the forward line is concerned. I think the defence is, arguably their big sort of weak point, but not by a massive amount. So the question going into it is, do Liverpool stick to the same formation that we used against Rangers? Do we stick to a two-man midfield and overload the forward line, or does Klopp go for a more sort of reserved formation? Because I think I can't see him going back to a 4-3-3 and sacrificing midfield control or defensive stability. Personally, I think he'll stick with the 4-2-3-1. But I don't know, where do you stand on this? Do you think there'll be a significant change, or will he? Because he said he liked what he saw against Rangers. He pointed out, he said, a little bit more structured. We carried a lot of threat. Defensively secure. So he seemed to sort of hint there that I'm going to stick with exactly that. But you never know with Klopp.
Yeah, well, no, we've been crying out for a strong, positive performance where we look solid at the back and free flowing up front, and that happened in the last game. So, some party would say, don't be stupid, just keep it as it was and let's go again. I think probably Bobby Firmino was that's a good point. Probably Bobby Firmino will be someone you might bring in, because I know, as I said, I think he's probably the most defensive minded of our forwards, and he could easily drop in. And we know that, I know you said before, Jota did really well, but I think maybe that's just a change in making. We've seen how well Firmino was doing in the league this season. I think was it 6 goals, 3 assists in 8 games. I feel like it'd be harsh to not play him. I know we're not too sure what's happened with Thiago. There's some thought he wasn't in training or whatever. So maybe again it's easy. You have Fabinho with the rest. You can play Hendo next to him. Put Bobby in there, and as I said before, it's really easy to fix if Arsenal do what Brighton did and get a couple of early goals, which fingers crossed and touch wood they don't. It's not hard to bring a midfielder on. Obviously, we don't know who's going to be fully fit. Thiago or Arteta are supposed to be possibly out. Jones maybe, but it'd probably be Harvey Elliott, and then you think maybe you are worth just having Firmino on, because as much as I like Harvey Elliott, I think Firmino can do a really good job in the middle of the pitch. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think a lot of fans will want us to keep what we've got, but at the same time, if he goes a bit more defensive 4-3-3 that we're used to, then I don't think you can be too upset with that either. Really, we are playing top of the league away from home. They're flying. They're a good possession side. They're going to have a lot of the ball. It's an interesting one, isn't it? It's obviously 2 massive games in the league coming up, Arsenal and City, and I think whatever Klopp does against Arsenal, if it works, he'll do the same against City. And they are a bit of maybe a City understudy or something. I don't know. Obviously, Arteta used to be there, Zinchenko, Jesus. It's going to be an interesting couple of games. And if we find something that works against Arsenal, it should work against City, hopefully. And yeah, if you're pushing me for an answer, I'll say stick with what we did against Rangers. Put Firmino in for. Get it hard, innit? You take out Jota maybe, and then you can bring Jota on, and then hopefully Nunez has a good start, and if not, you've got another option with Jota off the bench. It's probably what I'd say. So I'll go for stick, but bring Firmino in.
I suppose it's the only problem we've got, isn't it? When we do play that many forwards up top, rotating then becomes so much more critical and so much harder as well, because we don't have, I suppose, that same level of depth across the forward line. As you say, you can bring in Firmino, of course, swap him in for Jota. You can probably bring in Harvey. I mean, Mo Salah generally doesn't really need a rest. You know what I mean? You can go for 70 games a season. I mean, he might not be at his absolute flying best, but his body is certainly equipped to handle the stresses of that sort of workload. So yeah, I think I'd absolutely agree. I think he'd keep the system. I think there's no. I'm not sure what else he would switch to. I think he said he had a day to work on that formation before playing against Rangers, and you think, oh my goodness, you've had a day to work on that. It's already that good. What could you do with a few more? And I think it is going to be absolutely critical setting the tone early at the Emirates, and if we can really do the same thing we did, at Anfield against Rangers, pin them inside their own half, restrict their fullbacks, and just chance after chance after chance. You're gambling on Nunez finding the net, but if that's the game where he does, and you open the floodgates, then it could be frightening. I think it's run the risk, I think, of us almost getting turned over if we go back to a 4-3 and whack another midfielder in. But as you say, if the rumours are true that Thiago is in fact injured following his absence from training, I think it'd make more sense to certainly stick with a midfield 2 as things stand, rather than revert back to 3.
Sorry, sorry, just before you go on it as well, Firmino, I think, much as well as I think he's been playing, I think he's probably the worst of the front 4-5 that we've got to bring on as an impact sub. I don't think he necessarily changes the game as much. So I think again it is tailor made to put him in, and as I said, you can change it up. And with the injuries that possibly are in midfield, it does seem to point towards why not just try it again and see what happens. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I'm going to push you for a score here. How are you feeling? Because we're coming up. We have to absolutely respect the opposition here. I think this is a much improved Arsenal team. They're certainly recruited well in the summer. We know the quality they already have with the likes of Martinelli and Saka, Martin Odegaard.
So we saw the Ajax game. We got a couple. We got a 3 against Brighton. Again, I know a lot of stuff's been said about the Brighton game, but I think the fact that we were 2 goals down and got ourselves back to 3-2 up just showed there's still a lot of quality, a lot of good mentality within the squad. And we were really dominant and scored again against Rangers. And if anything, we could have scored more in all those games. It wasn't like we were lucky to get that amount of goals. So I think it's just about how well we do defensively. We look solid against Rangers. So hopefully we can keep them out. It's whether what happened at Brighton still scars them or whether they've fully wiped that out and we're ready to go again. So I'm confident we'll score at least 2. We've done it in the last 3 games. So I'd say I'll go for 3-1 Liverpool, which probably you might think for me is what might like me saying we're going to get beat. But I think that's probably something to go for. I don't think we probably won't keep a clean sheet with how well they're playing, but we've definitely got it in us to score several goals. And if we go straight at them with 4 strikers on the pitch, then no reason that wouldn't stop. Yourself?
I think the key, I think the key thing will be sort of what he tells Trent to do, because he was under specific instructions at Rangers to hold back. That sort of front 4 almost became a front 5, not because of Trent sort of bombing runs, but because Simicaz was given the license to run at the pitch whilst Trent was held back. So I think that key instruction will have to remain. I think just to sort of maintain that sort of feeling of sort of defensive stability. I think we'll win. I'm at risk of cursing it a little bit. I think we'll win. I think it'll be almost a potential classic. I think there'll be roughly 5 or so goals. I think it'll be a 3-2 to Liverpool. I don't think we're going to go there and trounce them, but I think they're going to give a damn good fight. But I think if Liverpool can exercise the same principles that we saw against Rangers, against better quality opposition, I think no reason why Liverpool can't win. It's just obviously arguably our toughest game yet. No disrespect to Napoli, and that'll be our toughest game yet until, of course, we then face Manchester City exactly a week later. So I think a 3-2. I think we've got Howard Butler's gone through a 3-0 win. Oh, I tell you what, I would bite your hand off right now for that, Howard. I really, really would.
Let's hope that Klopp's been playing all the Arsenal chants in training as well today, so we're fully ready for it as well.
Absolutely, you've got to prepare for the cauldron that is the Emirates Stadium. But yes, we have been the Empire of the Kop podcast. With me here today, I've had Peter Kenny Jones, and I've been your host, Farrell Keeling. It's just been the 2-man podcast for today, as we discussed all the build-up heading into the Arsenal game on Sunday. We've got a chat coming up offline. I'll add it on later in the edits when we share this, of course, to our Substack, to our YouTube, and you can catch us on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast that you're currently listening to. And of course, Tom Helovich, DJ and Arsenal fan, will be diving into all things Arsenal, how he's feeling about Mikel Arteta's men, and how he rates his chances potentially of Arsenal securing a first league title in quite a while. Be sure to catch that. For now, we have been the Empire of the Kop podcast. Take care. Goodbye. Welcome back. You are listening to the Empire of the Kop podcast again. We're still here. It's Pete, myself, Farrell Keeling, and we have a special guest, an Arsenal fan, Tom Helovich. Tom, thanks for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Farrell. How are you? And Pete?
Yeah, no,
okay?
We've been better. We've been better, so as far as the football's concerned. But I mean, from your perspective, I mean, you must be an absolute, fantasy land at the moment, top of the table by a point, leading ahead of City, playing some fantastic football. You spent well in the summer. It's a really sort of well organised project at Arsenal at the moment. Is there a sense of unity amongst the fan base in terms of how you're feeling about your current prospects and how the team's gelling together, and importantly, of course, the main man, Mikel Arteta?
Yeah, of course. To be fair, me and Pete have known each other going on 10 years now, and it's usually me who's the upset one. To be fair, the two of us when it comes to football, and it's just things have really switched around. There's a massive unity about the place, and you can just even see it, and you can hear it, and everyone's just together. And we have got such an amazing fan base that all we need is just good performances to just trigger that and just show it. And yeah, to be honest, I've had a season ticket since I was 8 years old. So I've obviously seen how good it can be. Obviously the Invincibles, everything like that. But I've also seen very mediocre football as well, to be fair. And this is the best I've seen it in a long time. So yeah, long may it continue. It feels a bit weird, to be fair.
Yeah, well, I think obviously, as you touched on then, Tom, we have known each other for a while, and you've had quite a few unhappy trips to Anfield. Obviously, this one is at the Emirates, but 4 times we played you last year, 3 wins, and we got a draw. That 0-0 one when Xhaka got sent off, and I think you won 0-0 that game. That was what you were going for, but so we're in different form at the moment. So without going maybe straight into it, obviously you haven't done the best at Anfield recently, but what about the form at the Emirates and what do you reckon? When we come, how do you reckon it's going to go?
I think obviously this is touching on from what we said before. This is the best time. This is the best time we've ever had to face you. To be honest, in however long I can remember, we've made at the Emirates a bit of a fortress as well. Like obviously this season, and I hope it can continue. I think we'll give you a good game on Sunday, 100%. It's just all about that start really, because I think we'll put a lot of pressure on at the start. It's just whether we can nab that goal, because you've seen it like when we were playing Spurs the other day. We put a lot of pressure on them first like 20-25, and then we didn't score, and then they came back in the game. And obviously I think in these sort of games form goes out the window, and whether or not you're in a little bit of a rut at the moment, you're still like multiple champions of Europe, won the league, still a force. So do you know what I mean? It's going to be a very, very tight game, very tight game, and hopefully we can nip it with the home advantage, because I think it would be different at Anfield.
I mean, there's been a lot of sort of talk about the game, and of course, take into consideration Liverpool's form. I think we've had Chris Sutton, who's now sort of taking care of the Premier League predictions on BBC Sports in place of Mark Lawrenson, a former Liverpool star, of course. And he sort of come on and said, well, I think Lawrenson was always really reluctant to put forward that Liverpool would lose or draw a game. But I reckon, they're going to go to Arsenal and they're going to get absolutely hammered by Mikel Arteta's man. I think he predicted a 4-1 scoreline. Is there a sense of confidence that you could really pull one over Liverpool here? Or is it sort of still, as you say, I mean, you take into consideration that you're still coming up against a side that has won the league, won the Champions League in the last 5 years. Is there still that sense of trepidation, or are you sort of feeling confident that, as you say, if you put the pressure on right, you get that first early goal, you could really open the floodgates?
It's definitely not a 4-1 confident. I can assure you that. I don't think we'll get to that stage, but I do feel confident. It's a strange feeling when coming up against Liverpool, because it's just obviously just accepted. Like every time when I've seen that fixture in the calendar, I knew we were going to lose. I knew that was a certain. But I feel like we've got all the tools to win. We just got the crowd will be up for it. And they'll all be absolutely bumping for it. And yeah, we're on a title charge at the moment, and I think we can. We've got everything we can to win, and I'm hoping we will. I'm going to go with 1-0 Arsenal.
Ooh.
Which is it makes me feel sick saying that, to be honest. I'm hoping we can nip it.
I heard you whisper the words title charge. So obviously, I think before the season it was pitted as us against City, and it still very much could be. We are in the start of October, but at the moment you're top. Everyone's chasing you. What chances have you got? Do you reckon to win the league? You've got the 3 Haalands, you've got Jesus, but what chances are there that we'll see Arteta with the Premier League title at the end of the season?
I don't think we'll win the league. To be perfectly honest, I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think we could easily get second or third, easily, which would be obviously a massive improvement. Like last year was a disappointment, and I think we could easily. We've got all the tools. We've strengthened in the right places. Obviously, we've got Jesus now, Zinchenko. People are coming into form. Xhaka, Odegaard. We've just got a really, really nice team there. But as we've all seen, City's just a bit of a cheat code, and they could win the league with their B team. That's the problem, and we've just not got that depth. Like when you look to our bench, they can do you know what I mean. They can bring on Mahrez, Alvarez, all of them. Like they've just got their B team is just unbelievable, and we've really not got much to look at the bench. That's the only problem. So I think we could easily get second or third.
I mean, you mentioned about having like the tools to potentially get a result over Liverpool and get high up the table. You've certainly got a lot of quality in that first team. I mean, Klopp was speaking about your squad in his press conference this afternoon, and he was talking about what a good job Arteta had done. Lots of talent. We know Klopp's a massive admirer of Gabriel Martinelli. We know he's a big fan of Martin Odegaard. You've got some absolutely phenomenal. Of course, Saka as well. That forward line alone is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, and young as well. So you're thinking, if you can build around that sort of forward base, as it were, you could really build an impressive sort of title challenging team. I suppose the question then in that regard is, if you're not going to win it this season, you reckon, how far are you away from competing with a full strength Manchester City and a full strength Liverpool?
As you touched on there, I heard it when we were playing Odo Glint on Thursday. They said we've got the second youngest team in the Prem, which is really impressive considering where we are. So hopefully they can just keep learning. Obviously mistakes will happen, but the way it's going, hopefully it can just keep blossoming, this team, and we can. I think we can get some heights. I think we probably need a good couple of centre mids, and probably back up in probably centre back. And I think our starting 11 can go against anyone. That's the thing. We just need more depth, really, and I think we can be up there. And obviously, it's not like it's an aging squad or they're coming towards the end of their career. Like these are blokes that are 21, 22, 23 years old. So the future is definitely looking bright. I don't think, obviously, where we were before, I don't think we're going to win the league this year, but we've got a young manager who's obviously got good ideas, and everyone rates him. So I think we can hit some heights and start challenging with City.
Okay, well, I think obviously last question before maybe, I know you touched on your score prediction before we go for the final one. I want to ask maybe an unfair question. Things aren't going 100% right with Liverpool for whatever reason. Maybe if I speak from our side, we're probably all a bit biased of what we think's happening. So maybe an outsider opinion. Obviously, I know you live in the city, so you'll have more than half an eye on how we do. So what do you reckon's happened with Liverpool this season? We put you in the hot seat. What would you change? Why aren't we where you are at the moment?
It's really weird, isn't it? It's just, everyone goes, "Oh, it's Mane," but it's not just Mane, is it? It can't just be just one player. Obviously, he had a massive impact on your squad, and he scored a lot of goals. But pretty much it's exactly the same team, isn't it? So they keep on focusing on the pressing, don't they? And people not getting to the ball as quick, and the intensity going down. And I think that might be a little bit of it when you're looking back on the how the centre mids run to the ball, and how Van Dijk and Matip or whoever else you've got as centre back who runs to the ball. And I just think football as well is just confidence. Just when you get like a one bad result, it can just sometimes just domino effect. And obviously, like, you've put a lot of faith in Nunez, and he's not got going just as of yet. But you'll definitely be back. You're 100% to be in the top four. Just need to get out of this little rut. But yeah, I think there's a number of reasons, but mainly at the moment, I just think it's confidence. Just need one big result, and then you'll be back in it.
Well, that comes on Sunday, I think. Yeah.
I was just going to say,
set yourself up. Yeah.
Well, you started the season absolutely brilliantly, Tom. 7 wins out of 8, top of the league, ahead of Manchester City, playing some great football. And I'm sure many an Arsenal fan will be hoping to keep the good times rolling when Liverpool come to visit at the Emirates on Sunday. Before you leave us, I hear Pete tells me that you are a DJ. Could you just let us know what you're up to? Any sort of exciting projects on the way? What's happening?
Yes. So I'm playing tonight in Liverpool. To be fair, I've got a headline show in Liverpool tonight in 24 Kitchen Street. So looking forward to that. So this is a nice little calm before the storm. Just have a little chat about Liverpool's pressing centre backs, and then we'll go and have a party. So it's all good, and I've got a lot of music coming out over the next few months. So you can find me on Instagram at tsounds. And playing all over in London, Manchester, Liverpool. If anyone wants to come and have a dance, just let me know.
Brilliant stuff. Tom Helovich, everyone. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, boys. Pleasure.
Thanks, Tom.
Cheers. Thank you.